Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to Nitro Nights. I've been your host, Tom Deacon, for the last few weeks, but I have to say, big news. I am passing it over to the one and only Indiana, who is in the brand new Nitro Nights studio. Indiana, that looks incredible.
Thank you so much, Tom. I'm super stoked to be here, of course. And yeah, it is a gorgeous studio. How the hell are you?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking. I feel a little bit underprepared. I should have tidied a bit more. What am I on about, though? For the last couple of episodes on Nitro Nights, it's been just as tidy, so I should have prepared more. But listen, what is going to be happening in the studio? You're going to have loads of guests. What's happening on the show today?
We've got a crazy docket stacked full of things for you guys today. We're taking a look at last week's news. We've got special guest James Baldwin, and then we have a great tutorial by Max Benecke for some of the gear and the setup that he uses at home.
This sounds like an amazing episode. Listen, Indiana, I'll pass it over to you guys. You're going to love this, and hopefully I'll get to come to the studio soon. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you so much, Tom. I cannot wait to share this couch with you. Now, for you guys, stay tuned and buckle up, because here we go. Hello and welcome to Nitro Nights, your #1 spot for all your esports racing news, interviews, and highlights. I'm Indiana Froskurinn Black, your host, and this is our brand new, gorgeous studio. Couches ready for post-interview COVID-19 situations, as well as the gaming arena chair, where every week we'll be inviting guests to sit down, play, and prove who truly is the fastest. But first, on the docket today, we have an interview with James Baldwin, we have a tutorial with Max Benecke, and we also have the highlights of last week. And speaking of last week, it wrapped up the Subaru All-Star Invitational, where Mitchell de Jong was looking for 4 out of 5 race wins, going for the 6th dominant run, and didn't quite go according to plan.
Third went out in front of the field. Sammy Matty Trogan gonna go out in style. His second feature win of the Subaru Invitational comes in the finale at Hell RX. It is Trogan, winner of the Fini d'America IRX Grand Finale.
What a victory by Sammy Matty Trogan. The Finnish iRacing Rallycross World Champion from 2019 turned out in perfect shape. His first heat was already a success. He started in 7th position, but the Finnish driver took an early advantage of a crash and mistakes made by his opponents.
Vanished from the racetrack. The racing's underway for round 1. We've got carnage. We've got a couple of cars taking to the Joker as well. And Trogan's already into the lead.
From that point on, Trogan's rivals in the first group couldn't catch up, and he came out on top with a clear win.
That's the beauty of iRacing. You can combine anything you want. As Trogan almost laps a car, which you rarely see in Rallycross, and wins heat number 1. He heads straight through to the feature along with Cabot Bigham.
Meanwhile, the tournament's favourite, Mitchell de Jong, started with his Volkswagen in Heat 2.
2 and maybe a jump for Biff on the inside, but we're off and away 4 wide. Who goes for the Joker?
He jumped immediately from 7th to 4th. It was something of a tough start for the X Games gold medalist, but he quickly made it past Biffle and Swindle when they collided. Now it was clear, de Jong only needed to get past racing veteran Ron Capps for pole position in his heat.
Thought he pulled a move off there on Ron Capps. They're heading through now.
In the end, de Jong won his heat and made it into the next round. Heat 3 featured more famous racing stars, including the Nitro Circus duo Josh Sheehan and 4-time Rally America champion Travis Pastrana, as well as Scott Speed.
Fared very well. How will Krahulik go on the inside? He's gone nowhere off the start, and he's held up Scott Speed in the Subaru.
Although Scott Speed was held up at first, he got past all his opponents to finally win his heat. Scott Speed, de Jong and Trogan. These 3 were the best drivers in their heats, and therefore started from position 8 through 10 in the final race.
4, 5 wide, run down to the Joker, Karam. There's 6 of them going the long way around. It is Breen who's the first of that cluster out of the Joker.
Trogan immediately jumped to 4th, while de Jong was stuck behind when it happened.
Series champion, Sage Karam in issues too. 2 of the BRS Coanda Simsport cars in trouble.
The American driver was turned around, robbed of his chances to win his 5th race in the Subaru IRX All-Star Invitational. Meanwhile, Trogan made another leap forward to position 2. It was only 19-year-old Travis Picoy now ahead of him. The battle was fierce, but Trojan used a quick turn to take the lead up to the finish line. A well-deserved victory for the Finnish champion.
And that was one hell of a race. Now, Scott Speed managed to finish 4th there before taking to Instagram to congratulate Trojan on his victory. Meanwhile, Mitchell de Jong hung on to 9th place with 2 laps behind, but ultimately didn't impact the overall standings, which makes him the Subaru IRX All-Star Invitational Champion. Now, what that means is he now has $5,000 to donate to the charity of his choice. And now for more news, where we're actually going to start over in Formula E racing, where everything seems to go smooth. It's beautiful, the graphics are perfect, great day for a race. And then we hit the first turn, and it looks like me trying to parallel park. It is a massive pileup and some pretty ridiculous physics. Now, ultimately, it was Pascal Wehrlein that took the victory. You can see the top 10 on your screen right now. It was his 2nd victory in a row, as well as having the fastest lap time. Now, next up, let's take a spin over into the iRacing Indy 500, where we had one brutal crash on the open raceway.
Oh my word! What can spun around? Trino is going to become the first ever 2-time winner of the iRacing Indianapolis.
With a last lap overtake, Brandon Trino wins the race. He had already won the 2019 edition of the race, which makes him the back-to-back champion. Now, second, of course, was Jeff Drake, and pole sitter Costanini ended up 13th. Now let's head over to MotoGP, where 6-time MotoGP champion Valentino Rossi returned to the field. 11 real MotoGP riders were competing for the win at Messino. The race start had several crashes, and it was a duel between brothers for first position. In the end, Alex Marquez wins against his older brother Mark, who already won 6 MotoGP titles in real life. Valentino Rossi struggled in his first virtual race. Now over in the Porsche 1 Mobile Supercup, it was an intense battle for the last 2 races of the event between Larry ten Voorde and Guven. Now they fought fiercely, but ultimately Guven with the fastest lap couldn't quite catch Larry. The last news of the week is the F1 Legends Challenge, which was a brutal battle between David Coulthard, Nico Rosberg, football legend Roberto Carlos, and former F1 driver Robert Dornbos. Now, round 1 consisted of 1v1 battles. Round 2 took Rosberg and the 3 other drivers back to Abu Dhabi, where Rosberg won his world championship in 2016. Round 3 was a 14-lap race at the Circuit of Americas with invited influencers. Lots of action. Coulthard and Rosberg crashed into each other. Now, in the end, it was content creator Tiamat Marduk that won the race. Let's take a look at the last seconds.
And at the final corner, on the final lap, Tiamat Marduk comes across the line. And look at what it means. He's absolutely delighted. And the Australian really deserves that one. A super performance. Well done to him.
And what a finish by Tiamat Marduk. Now, as you can see, I've made myself cozy on the couch because we actually have a very special guest in James Baldwin. If you don't know anything about James Baldwin, which I did do some very quick Googles very recently, he's 22, racer from the UK. I would actually define him as a hybrid racer, but I'm going to check in on how he feels about that title, and most recent winner of the 2019 World's Fastest Gamer. James, are you there?
Hello, how you doing?
I am excellent. How are you?
Yeah, great, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure.
And I wanted to kind of quickly jump onto that title of like hybrid racer, because I feel like there was an interesting podcast that you did about 2 weeks ago called The Cool Down, and the host asked you if you defined yourself as a gamer, as an esports racer, or if you felt that you were a real life racer, because obviously you have real life racing experience, most recently with getting to drive the McLaren. So I wanted to get it from you, like, where do you feel that you actually sit with that title?
I'll be honest with you, Frosk, I don't really know, but I'm happy and I'm willing to do both. I think it's possible to do both. So I suppose a hybrid is a very good word. So I'll take that title and take it forward.
And I love what you said there. It's possible to be both, because I think as someone new to esports racing and kind of the sim side of it, it's a little bit daunting, and it feels like it's almost as close to the traditional thing as other esports. People make this comparison all the time, but the inputs that you guys are using, the controllers, the pedals, are exactly the same that the actual racers are using. Do you find that the transition is easy when you're racing the McLaren in the simulation versus when you're actually actually on the road with it?
Yeah, I mean, compared to any other esports, it's easier by a mile. It's not easy to transfer from this to a McLaren because there's so many more elements to it, but it's easier than you think, or most people think, in my opinion. A lot of people say as well that it's easier to drive a real car than it is with this because you have more feeling. So if you get over that initial scare of you going quite quick, it's pretty easy.
So we'll continue talking about your rig in a second. I want to focus a bit more on your titles and kind of who you are as a driver, because I was pulling up your resume, and it is very long. And then I got the surprise factor that you've only been racing since 2017, I believe, on Project Cars. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been racing since I was a kid, really, like since I was 8, the karting and then the real race cars as well for a bit. But sim racing and esports, 2017 is when I kind of got into it. Project Cars 2 or Project Cars 1 was the game I started on. So yeah, it's all stemmed from that, really.
Would you consider yourself a gamer? Like, you were a racer in terms of your car experience, then you became a gamer, and then you went into an esports racer. Do you think that's a fair trajectory?
Yeah, it's bang on. That's exactly what happened. And it was all by accident as well. Nothing was planned. When I was 8, I wasn't planning on doing this. So, yeah.
James, in terms of all of the titles and the accolades that you have right now, specifically, what does 2019 World's Fastest Gamer actually mean to you? Because I think it's quite confusing as an esports fan, kind of looking at what that really means in the scheme of things.
What it means? I mean, I don't really think about it too much, like what it means. I just reflect on how hard it was and how much work was involved to try and win it. But yeah, it's a great thing to look back on. I'm sure in the future as well, looking back on a title like that will be really cool. They're doing a TV series on it, so I can't wait for that to come out so I can watch that. And a lot of people can see how amazing the competition was run. But no, it's a cool title for sure.
Do you think it was kind of the height of esports racing, or is this just kind of like the beginning of things to come with a competition like that, with the star names involved, with some of the judges that were giving away the opportunity?
Well, I know World's Fastest Gamer are doing future competitions, so I mean, there'll be bigger and better stuff naturally as it all grows. But I don't think that's the only competition people should aspire to do. Esports alone, like F1 esports and Gran Turismo, all that kind of stuff, that's just as credible. And that's something I'm trying to go into and win now. But, there's going to be loads of competitions going out in the future. And I actually said to my friend the other day, I wish I was born 10 years later, just because it's going to be booming, I reckon, around then. Whereas we're in the early days still. So, we'll just wait and see.
When you talk about kind of your training and preparation for that competition and now training for the competitions in the future, is it a similar training regime to what you would use from like your karting days that you would use on a real track? Yeah, it's similar. I mean, back then it was more kind of natural. I didn't do too much training. You just turned up and raced. But I try and think outside the box, use the VR, use all the equipment I've got in here. Veloce Esports as well, my team. There, they have their own simulator that I can use that's motion rig, so it's quite expensive. It kind of immerses you into that feel of a real car a bit more. So there's plenty of tools and stuff I can use I use to practice for World's Fastest Gamer. But the weird thing was they didn't actually tell us what we were doing at all. So there was no itinerary. It was kind of, you turned up and they wouldn't even tell you on the day what you were doing. You just got shifted to these places, and it was whoever could adapt the fastest wins. And that was the kind of key skill that got me through it, really. That is the classic esports, show up on the day. Now, we do have a quick fire round coming up. Now, what this game is going to be is the collective minds of my producers have assembled questions. I'm going to ask them to you as rapidly as possible because you're a racer, you should be able to go fast, yeah? And you're just going to answer just like split second, first thing off the top of your head. Ready? No. It's really easy, I promise. Okay. Go for it. What racing game is your favorite? Assetto Corsa. What is your favorite car? McLaren 720S GT3. Okay. Biggest idol? Juan Pablo Montoya. Best racetrack in the world? Suzuka. And pineapple on pizza, yes or no? No. I don't know about that one. That is okay, horrid. Well, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to toss it over to Max Benecke, who's given us a tutorial and a breakdown for the equipment he uses in-game.
This is what it looks like when I fight for the pole position. High-end steering wheels, hydraulic pedal systems, and high-resolution monitors. My name is Max Benecke, and I'm the highest-rated iRacing driver in the world. And today, I'm going to show you which hardware you need in order to be competitive and why. Let's have a look at our options first. Setup 1 is a classic keyboard and mouse. Sure, you can drive with that, but you shouldn't. Too little control, no feeling for the car, driving the racing line is next to impossible. If you press an arrow key on the keyboard, there are only two states, on and off. Gradual adjustments, like with a steering wheel or gas pedal, are impossible. Imagine only being able to turn your steering wheel all the way or not at all. That would not make for good driving, would it? And it's the same with our second setup. With a controller, you can at least make gradual adjustments with using the joystick, but it still doesn't simulate the feeling of driving very well, and as a result, you have next to no feeling for the car. If you want to do sim racing, you should do it right. So let's get our hands on the steering wheel and the feet on the pedals. Here comes setup number 3. But what do we actually have to keep in mind when looking for the right steering wheel? There is a huge range in regards to pricing. Rookies can find suitable equipment made by brands like Thrustmaster and Logitech already from $150 upwards. Pros mostly prefer high-end products by different companies. Prices in the 5 digits are no rarity. Let's get to the criteria that a good steering wheel has to meet. First, the steering radius should be quite high. This is super important to have perfect control over the car. Compare the difference in this corner. One shows steering input with a gamepad, the other with a wheel. While I have to move the small joystick on my gamepad all the time to make adjustments, I can smoothly drive a perfect line with a wheel. During a tight race, you should make sure to have both hands firmly on the wheel to maintain control at all times. Therefore, a good grip is key. If your hands slip or you have to adjust the grip, you will be at a disadvantage. The force feedback provides an authentic feeling while driving. Good wheels give you a better impression of the properties of the track by vibrating or putting up resistance in steering movements. This way, you get better at controlling your car more instinctively. If your wheel features a good customization software for calibration and robust quality, you're good to go. Your pedals should also be chosen wisely. Often, they come in a bundle with the wheel. Good pedals emulate individual counter pressure. This enhances your control over acceleration and enables smooth braking. Expensive pedals like these Heusinkfeld Ultimates even work with hydraulics. If you want to complete the immersion of racing, you should invest in a good monitor as well. Your display should have a high resolution as well as a high refresh rate. A lot of pros drive with a triple monitor setup, but using an ultra-wide or regular display is also fairly common. The pricing here starts at $300 and can go up to over $1,000. There are many other options to increase your racing experience. The perfect seat, slip-proof gloves, top-notch headphones, or a speedometer can complete the simulated experience in your rig. Believe me, once you've ever been on track with great equipment like this, you don't want to go back. And now excuse me, I have to go back to racing. Race starts in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much, Max. And James, we've now heard from Max. What's your take on it? How important are rigs into overall success? Do you have to have the top end? Because I've looked at some of those price points and they are very scary.
No, you don't need it. It makes you more comfortable. It gives you more consistency. You can feel the car, the virtual car, a bit more. You can tune it a bit nicer. So money does get you the equipment that makes you feel more comfortable. But there are people I know who are top end of iRacing who are on, Logitechs or something a bit cheaper. So it really is about what you're used to. And then if you feel like you get to a level and you've got the budget to buy that equipment that's going to make it more comfortable for you, then that's fair enough. But not everyone has that kind of budget. So don't be disheartened. You can be quick on quite cheap equipment.
What did you start on when you first started racing in Sims?
A Logitech G920 on this rig here, actually, the GT Omega rig. So, yeah, I mean, total, that's like 400, 500 pounds. So it's not that much, really. I know it's a little bit of money, but yeah.
Is that what your recommendations would be? Like, if I were to go out and be like, I'm going to become an esports racer, what would you like put on my shopping list?
I would say try, Forza or something like that on a controller, because controllers are very cheap. And if you feel like you've got an understanding for how racing lines work and you can race quite hard, you feel like if you got a wheel and pedals, you'd be a little bit quicker, then I would go for a Logitech G920 or G29, depending on what console you're buying it on, or a PC. And you don't even need a rig. You can just use a desk or a seat or something like that to start with. And again, if you feel comfortable, it's something you want to pursue, then buy a rig. And just as you go along your journey, buy bits of equipment along the way. And that's probably what Max did as well. We didn't buy his equipment he's got now straight away. He started off small, won a few competitions, got into a team, and then you end up buying the really expensive equipment. So I'm still on that journey. I haven't got the equipment I ideally want yet, but I haven't got the money I want yet either. So it's going to be a long journey.
Forza it is. My Mario Kart days have finally paid off for this moment. Thank you so much, James.
I skipped the stage there. I forgot the Nintendo Wii.
There you go. It's perfect, except when a blue shell comes and ruins your day. Thank you so much, James, for sitting down and talking with us.
No worries. Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we'll be able to actually have you in studio sometime.
Yeah, it looks awesome. I really want to go there now. So yeah, please.
And of course, it's that time again for the social showrooms. Without further ado, let's see what you got. First up, it's Camille sending us in a nice collection of all of his steering wheels. He also gave us a good look at his full rig, and it gets much more impressive from that. I want to slide one into my living room, but I don't think I quite have the space or the aesthetic. We also got a good look at Renee Butler's rig. This aesthetic, I like a little bit more. I like the color scheme going on. Yeah, I think I could make that one work with the wall paint. Now, reminder, guys, that if you guys want to see that your rig on the show, be sure to use the hashtag Nitro Nights. Give us a tweet. But sadly, that's it for us today. This is going to be the farewell. So thank you so much for joining us. Reminder that we'll be in studio every single week for all the hottest esports racing news. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.